An ambivert is a person whose personality traits blends both introversion and extroversion. They comfortably socialize with others, but also enjoy spending time alone, and they adapt their behavior to fit the situation.
Hello, and welcome to the Mochiverse. I'm Linette.
And I'm Skip.
And we're both ambiverts, apparently.
Yeah. And if you don't know an ambivert, we will explain it to you.
Well, just rewind it like 20 seconds. It's fine.
Right. There you go. I thought myself, I said, I don't think of myself as an introvert. I don't think of myself as an extrovert. So maybe I'm an ambivert. Now, here is a more detailed look at it. Let's just try to give you an idea. Balanced energy. Ambiverts find energy in both social interaction and solitude, unlike introverts who tend to be drained by the social situations, and extroverts who are energized above them. They easily switch between outgoing and reserved, depending on the context, their mood, and their goals. Think about that. Are you an ambivert, extrovert, or introvert?
No, I'm totally one of those. I am definitely like I would be happy on a desert island for 6 months not talking to anybody, and I would not go crazy. But last night I had a 30-minute conversation with my neighbor that I, don't usually talk to, not for any good reason. It's just that I don't usually want to socialize. But I just couldn't stop talking to this poor guy because I got started.
I think it's fascinating because it would be. I can't tell you how many occasions that I would say I consider myself introverted, but not completely.
Yeah.
So it never really, and then somebody, when I'd say that, they'd look at me like, yeah, okay.
They do that to me too. They think I say, I have a lot of social anxiety and I'm very introverted. They're like, no, you're not. I watch you all day at work. And I'm like, first of all, I am masking 100% of the time at work. That is not me. I'm pretending. And I've learned how to do that ever since I was young. But second of all, like, that's just me. Like, I have different modes. And it just goes to the current theory, which I happen to agree with. Like, I sound like Matt Hooper. That there's a spectrum for everything. Yep. And that's definitely a spectrum as well.
It's interesting. I'm not sure where I heard it, but I started looking into it and I goes,
yeah. Yeah. And also, I'm sure you've heard about the term social battery. Have you heard about that?
No.
Like, basically, you could be a social person. You could be a little bit extroverted. You could be mostly introverted. But most of the time, this is people who are mostly introverted, who can socialize, who want to socialize, and they go to a social event and they are completely drained afterwards, right? Everybody has a different social battery. And that's a thing that not everybody can relate to. But I feel like most of the people I know can relate to it. The ones I deign to associate with, I guess.
Yeah.
Because, like, Richard and I are not overly social. We don't go to things. We don't do things. But we, both of us are perfectly capable of holding conversations and being social. So if we have to go someplace and talk to a bunch of people, afterwards, we just don't know why we're so completely exhausted. I mean, all we have to do is go to Costco, and then we need to sleep for the rest of the afternoon.
Yes. Yeah. Like I say, it's an interesting content. It really explains a lot. It doesn't put you in this box. You find that I think of myself, the more I think about it, I could find fulfillment in social activities like pickleball or tennis, or solitary hobbies like woodworking.
Yeah.
So both, I find fulfillment in both aspects. I can't do them all the time.
Right.
But I slip in and out of them with no problem at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I can relate to that 100%.
Yep.
Very cool.
I'd also like to start off a little bit of a trivia.
Did
you know that umpires, these are baseball umpires, are
Mhm.
required by rule to wear black underwear. You know why?
No, why would they have to wear
Just
black
in
underwear?
case they split their black pants.
Oh, yeah. But so this isn't the requirement for everybody who plays baseball. I find that
No, it's
interesting.
just umpires.
Why not? Like,
Well, they yeah, they all should anyways. You're right.
right? That's really funny.
Yeah,
Umpires are a very interesting animal, and I'm saying this from a place of, as everybody knows by now, someone who doesn't really know sports very
yeah.
much, but they're very interesting. They're like they're part of the game, but not. They're sort of
Mhm.
set apart,
Yeah,
sort of like in a more simplistic way a goalie would be,
right.
in
Mhm.
hockey or whatever. But they're not really part of your team. They are your team and they're like leading, and they're like in
Yeah.
charge. But and
Yeah,
yet they're
they
not
be the
there and they're
boss.
there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they're the boss. Very interesting. Have you seen the have you heard of the Savannah Bananas?
Yes, yes. They dance around before they.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, have you ever seen any of their clips?
I have. Yes,
Did you
I
see
have.
the umpire who was like twerking in one of the
No, I
clips?
didn't see that part. Yeah.
That's the first thing I thought of when you were talking about umpires, especially their butts.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah, because they were doing like some sort of dance and the umpire just like started twerking. It was very good.
yeah. That's yeah.
They weren't there. They weren't there when I was in Savannah. One of my bosses actually texted me while I was there, and he said, oh, check them out. And I was like, I already know about them, but they're not here right now. They were somewhere else. I forget where, and they're not going to be back till Juneteenth. They weren't going to come back until
Oh, okay.
Juneteenth.
Okay.
Yeah, it's back to Savannah. So they travel a lot because they're so popular. And he did make a good parallel with them because it's the
Mhm.
first thing I thought of when I first saw the clips. They're like the baseball equivalent of the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yes, yes, that would yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That'd be a good comparison.
Yeah, which is something what I grew up with, but a lot of people don't know who they are anymore.
Yeah.
I'm sure they're
Eh,
still a thing, but not,
they are. They still have exhibitions.
yeah. But it was everywhere all over the TV when I was a kid. Everybody
Yes,
knew who they were.
they would have them on at least once a year. You would have a special with the Hollywood Pros.
Yeah. And they
It,
were on
it,
Scooby Doo.
yep. And, and while we're on baseball, I got one
Oh
trivia,
yeah.
another trivia, which I think you'd like.
Uh-huh.
I think you'd like. Jackie Mitchell
Okay.
once struck out Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig during a minor league exhibition game. What makes that special? Well, Jackie Mitchell was a teenage girl
Nice.
and one of the first women to ever suit up for a professional baseball game. But
Very
boom,
cool.
very cool, huh?
Yeah, and of course it had to be an exhibition game, so it didn't
Close.
count. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah. Because Babe Ruth probably wouldn't have liked that if it was real. Like
Yeah.
I think I don't know a whole lot about Babe Ruth, but he just looks like he's a misogynist a little
Yeah, he was a
bit.
party guy. So
Yeah.
yeah,
He probably said the word dames a lot,
yeah, yeah, I would say so. Yeah. I thought
Uh,
you'd like that one. Yeah.
I do. I do. And it's funny because the first thing I thought of when you said Jackie, I'm like, oh, a baseball player named Jackie? That's like 50% of them, isn't it?
Right. Yeah. Well,
That's good.
Jack, see, the trick
Hmm.
to that was be like Jackie Robinson, who was,
Right.
the first black baseball player. But I thought that was a pretty interesting fact.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
I like it. Now this one, I don't remember if I already did this one. Yeah, I think I wrote this like 6 weeks ago. This little fact is that the coffee break was invented by the Pan American Coffee Bureau. Now, this is one of those things that it's becoming one of my regular themes is regular stuff that we remember from not necessarily just our childhoods, but just American life
Mhm.
and how
Yeah.
it all really started as an advertising campaign.
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like
yeah. Yep. That's
it's kind
true.
of scary, but it's true. Like it's almost like this country was built on advertising.
Well, yeah, it's funny because you're right. You'll hear these sayings all the time that we did a part of our our language. There's a couple that we brought up, and there's a couple I would bring up in a little while. Like chewing the fat or to
Yeah.
cost an arm and a leg. And they have they started way back, and then now all of a sudden they become an advertising slogan.
Yes, the
Maybe not.
advertising, yeah, the advertising angle is so fascinating to me
Yeah.
because, and I actually talked about it at work with one of my coworkers who's going to be an esthetician. We
Mhm.
talked about shaving, and I was like talking about how fascinating it was that, in this country, shaving your armpits for a woman wasn't even really that much of a thing until sleeveless dresses became fashion.
Yeah.
And then they started having advertisements like, "You're disgusting. You have to
Yeah.
shave this." You can,
Yeah.
and she laughed. And it was absolutely, it's absolutely true. But yeah, so the Pan American Coffee Bureau,
Yeah. Okay.
this was started in 1937, and what it was is it was the coffee boards of 7 South and Central American countries, right? So people who ran the coffee interest, big coffee, whatever. It was started in order to promote the use of coffee specifically from those regions. And I mean, coffee has a super long, super interesting history. I've watched multiple documentaries about coffee itself. But this era of coffee is interesting because of how hard they wanted it to be an all-American thing, right? And
Hmm.
how they kind of had to make these ads that were, and about old commercials.
Yeah.
If you watch old commercials today, it really looks like they are spoon feeding information to a bunch of dummies. Like
Yeah.
it's like, come on now, sweetie. Your husband won't like you unless you do this.
Right.
And
Mhm.
coffee was no different. And so they needed to promote coffee. So they're like, well, let's promote the idea of a coffee break. And it's not like a coffee break was a completely new thing. Like they were doing it in some workplaces already. You take a
Yeah.
break to have some coffee. Um, like factory workers, people in manufacturing, they'd take a short break and have a cup of coffee. But
Right.
what they really wanted to do post-war was to promote coffee breaks in places like offices and hospitals. And they wanted to create this, sort of like you think about the water cooler in an
Hmm.
office. They
Yeah.
wanted the coffee machine to be that. They
A
wanted it to
hangout
be,
place. Okay.
yeah, exactly. They wanted to encourage like coffee making as a regular American thing that was part of your day. And they wanted to encourage people to make coffee at home because it really, I mean, I can imagine in the 30s there were people making coffee at home, but if you ever read like The Grapes of Wrath,
Mhm.
it's basically putting some really, really bad quality coffee like in a pot on on a stove or on a fire. You know what I mean? That's
Oh,
not,
wait.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's not, that's a little bit of a far cry from like, and then talking about like late 30s, early 40s. That's a far cry from like what they wanted was basically the image that would be in your head of a 50s housewife with a nice coffee pot making some like Folgers or some shit, for her husband. And
Yeah.
those commercials, I don't know if you've ever seen them. There's a series of commercials, and I think it's Maxwell House. I could be wrong,
Good to the
but
last drop,
yeah, it was a
which it
series of
isn't, by the way, but
commercials.
that's
No, it's
fine.
just whatever. It's fine. But it was a series of commercials with a housewife. And it's usually like a newlywed housewife, she's kind of young and pretty, and her husband's handsome. And clearly they love each other or whatever. Um, but the wife is like, "Oh, honey, I'm so happy we're married and I love you so much. How's your morning?" And he's like, "Well, it's almost okay, but this coffee you made is terrible." And she's like, and he's like, "Okay, well, I'm going to work now." And she's like, "Oh no, I don't make good coffee for my husband. Whatever shall I do?" She goes next door and there's this lady who like has a German accent. She's like an older lady and she was in all these commercials. I forget her name, but
Okay.
she was like famous. And she goes, "Oh, you have to have this coffee. You don't understand. This is why your coffee's no good because you don't have this Maxwell House, whatever. It's mountain grown." And she goes, "Oh, really?" And then she makes it for him. And then he drinks a cup of coffee the next day and he's like, "Wow, honey, I love you now." Like these asshole husbands were like, yeah, well, you're a pretty good housewife and everything, but your coffee sucks. And then she's like, oh no, how do I please my husband? And that's the way I think of advertisements. Well, those are the ones that came about because of this company. And again, they were talking about the coffee break.
Yeah.
And they also heavily promoted the idea of iced coffee, which
Oh,
I
okay.
found, yeah, which I found very interesting because and also the idea of iced coffee being okay to drink all year, which
Mm.
I don't think everybody is still okay with that, but we're from Massachusetts, and in Massachusetts, it's totally okay to eat and drink cold things in the middle of the winter. Like we always we
Yeah.
always drank iced coffee all year.
Yeah.
And also
Similar.
like,
Yeah.
yeah. And if you think about the line at Treadwell's ice cream that was always wrapped around the block, like in the
Hey,
middle of winter.
yeah, I can remember, yes, Treadwell's ice cream. I can also remember, although this is different, it's not ice cream, but we would be down Revere Beach
Yeah.
at Kelly's Roast Beef in the middle, practically of a snowstorm, getting fried clams or a roast beef sandwich.
Yeah, summer stuff,
It doesn't
right?
matter. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, maybe it's because we're Massachusetts people and we're just used to that. But like apparently other people didn't drink iced coffee all year, and this coffee board really wanted us to get on board with that too. So I
So,
don't know.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I find it so the advertising, the angle that I find so fascinating with advertising is how much it shaped just how we live. And it's like,
Yeah.
wow, I guess you're good at your job, but it's also scary if you think about it, you know.
Yeah, if especially, if the commercial is I want to say quirky enough, done in such a way that sort of is catchy and gets your attention.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you're not this catchiness, becomes a part of your everyday life. Hey, listen, how about, Tang wouldn't be the way to go, but they had Tang at some point. Hey, how about a glass of Tang? I
Yeah.
don't think so, but until you drink it, then so,
Well, and
yeah,
and when it comes to how catchy commercials are, I mean,
yep,
my boss, one of my bosses at work and I, we're about 7 or 8 years apart. So we
uh-huh,
remember all the stuff from the same kind of time.
yeah.
And Richard and I too. Our
Mhm.
memories can be triggered just like that from little phrases. I mean, because
Mhm.
you could say you said good to the last drop, right?
Yep. Yep.
How about if I just randomly sang a little ditty to you, you'd know exactly what I was talking about. If I just went do 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 do,
Yep.
that's the percolator coffee thing,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of
Plop,
it's
plop, fizz, fizz.
blah blah fizz fizz. Oh yeah. And and I was so sad to learn that not everybody had Prince spaghetti in the whole country because I was like, Anthony,
Uh,
Anthony. And Richard's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, it's Wednesday. It's Prince Spaghetti Day. And he's like,
they,
what? I'm like, oh
yeah.
no. Oh
Yeah.
no. I thought that
And,
was
and yeah,
everything.
the factory was on Prince Street in the North End. So
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
Yeah. I had no idea that that was so limited to New England.
Yep.
I was like, you do the Anthony thing, but I think that made it to New York too,
Yeah. Yeah.
possibly, because
But it probably wasn't as popular. I mean, they might have done it differently in New York, but uh, so,
yeah, but that Anthony thing, I mean, I had no idea that was basically a Boston commercial. That's so weird.
mm.
But yeah, so commercials shape our lives, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, they do. It's interesting. I think I was talking to someone recently about that, which the North End and things in the North End that were popular that
Mm.
to this day they're still there.
Yeah,
So
love it.
I threw in this thing to cost an alarm and a leg. You know what
Oh yeah.
where that comes from?
Are you quizzing me again? Is it from Britain?
No, no. See, you were prepared for that being from Britain.
I was. It's from
Uh,
England. Everything's from England.
It probably is. It was basically, before photography was invented, people would hire painters to make their portraits.
Yeah.
And portrait painting it's an expensive art form. It actually still is,
Oh, sure.
you know. So the larger and more detailed this portrait was, the more it cost. So it
Huh.
became common for people uh, of limited means to have their just have the heads and shoulders painted as opposed to the whole body. And only royals could afford a full portrait. That was the birth of the phrase to cost an arm and a leg,
For real?
which for
That's
real, yeah, which meant
because
to.
like because the first thing I think of is why not two of each? What's going on in these time periods where it's so expensive. I can have my one arm and my one leg in the picture.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny. It was that's where it started, and then later on, I mean, basically, it says to now when we use that terminology, we say it costs an exorbitant amount of money.
Yeah,
But later in the 19th and 20th century, when soldiers would lose their limbs in
right.
war, and an arm and a leg took more of a literal memeaning,
Right. I would
it's
think,
considered a
yeah,
loss of a body part's too high of a
too
price to pay.
right, too high. And if you were to just quiz me on what the origin was without any context, I would have imagined it was something like that. So costly that you would have to give up, your actual body parts to pay for it. Like the
Yeah,
pound of flesh thing, you
pound of
know.
flesh thing, right?
Interesting.
Yeah, and interesting. Another expression, and I'm not going to quiz you on this,
Oh, okay.
is chew the fat.
Oh yeah.
You
Oh
know where that
wait.
comes from?
No, but I think we may possibly have talked about this before. Maybe not on air, but I think
Yeah,
we
I
might
think we
have.
might have. It became to make friendly small
Yeah.
talk. That's basically what it is. You
Right.
know, and chewing the fat becomes synonymous with idle chit chat.
Yeah.
Centuries ago in Britain, people would actually
Ah,
snack on fatty
right.
pork rind, while idling, chatting away.
See, I would have
So
guessed
chewing the
colonial
fat.
America.
Yeah, and it was also common in the Royal Navy
Hmm.
because after spending some time at sea, you imagine there wouldn't be much left. But one of the things that would be left was pork rind. So they would, sit around
Yeah.
chewing the fat while they're
Yeah.
talking.
Yeah. See, I would have imagined, see, my first guess would have been it had something to do with some sort of colonialism because, like in colonial America, um, their first couple of years were really rough as far as like they didn't have a lot of resources and there was winters and things like that. They had to
Right,
preserve a lot of foods. And one
yeah,
of the things they ate an awful lot of was jerky.
right, yeah.
And so you would have to chew on your food for a very long time whenever you ate it,
Mm.
which gross. But also, and then it also makes me think about the this is where my mind goes because I'm very dark. Did you ever read about the Donner Party?
Yes, yeah.
Um, before they started eating each other, for necessity, by the way, they were not at fault. Before they started eating each other, they had to like, kill their oxen and stuff. And the
Mhm.
best way to do that isn't just to eat big steaks and stuff. They had to cut everything into strips and make jerky and just eat jerky for months.
Oh, okay.
And
Huh.
like in colonial America, they had to do that too, because you had to like immediately preserve whatever you were killing, because there's no refrigeration, there's no
Right.
way to. So you had to like, you couldn't just like, if you had a cow, you couldn't
Mhm.
just like have a bunch of steaks and stuff. You would have to take the whole thing, cut it into little strips, dry it, and now it's much more practical because now you can eat for like a long time.
Well, the salt, it was the
The
way they used
salt.
to preserve
Yeah.
meats and stuff.
Salt
Yeah,
pork and salt fish and stuff
right.
like that.
Hmm.
Yep, yep. Which is like it makes me it it fills me with wonder sometimes to think about how people had to live in survival mode,
Yeah.
but also it's like I mean it makes me feel glad that I don't have to do that. I feel very privileged, but also it's like, oh man, can you imagine just having to live in some wilderness or a
Yeah.
frontier or someplace like that. And eating isn't about pleasure at all. Eating
Mm.
is about survival. So basically, all you have to eat is like jerky.
Yep.
and
Yeah.
whatever vegetables you could forage and like tree bark and shit. That would be like
Right.
so depressing because I enjoy food.
Yeah. 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 And if you think about, they wouldn't have dentists and stuff. So you
Yeah.
imagine that if some rough type of food would be tough on someone who doesn't have teeth.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Although I
they,
did learn, and this was, of course, if you're talking about colonial America, that is after Tudor times, but until Tudor times, which would be like what, 1400s, I think, 1500s, um, people's teeth actually weren't that bad.
Mhm.
You would
Okay.
think like everybody before us had terrible teeth or whatever,
Yeah.
but teeth of like I guess they took a skull. I was watching a documentary about Tudor England, and they took a skull of a person who died in that period of Tudor England, like say Elizabeth the First
Mhm.
or even Henry the Eighth, that whole period of time. And they had a skull from somebody like 200 years earlier.
Mhm.
And that person from 200 years earlier had like totally fine teeth, not even cavities. It was like
Okay.
fine. They had all their teeth weren't worn down to nubs. They were just like
Right.
fine. And then the person from Tudor had like two teeth left in their skull and they were like all worn out and messed up and wrecked because sugar became a
Yeah.
thing that was
Yeah.
more accessible during that time period.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, 1600s, I guess there would have
Yeah.
been a certain amount of sugar. I know that they had sugar in cones in colonial America because I
Yeah.
saw one. It was like a 10-inch cone of solid packed sugar
Yeah.
that it would be brought in on ships or whatever. And
And
you had to scrape it with a knife to get whatever sugar you needed.
yeah, and they would probably make like, we see it frequently as, a honey stick or something like that.
Yeah, yeah, that's what yeah, and I'm sure once people get settled in a certain place, that's when the beekeeping starts and they
Mhm.
discover that they can, bees are very efficient at giving us honey.
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah.
it's a reason it's not vegan because it's like I didn't make it for you. Although arguably they do make an awful lot more than they need, so
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah,
Doesn't
it's
mean it's
kind of.
ours, but
I also mentioned, the phrase "one for the road."
yes, we've done that one.
Yeah, and that's interesting. You remember that because it was funny. I didn't remember it. So,
Hmm.
but when I looked at it, I said, "Geez, we must have done that one," but I couldn't find anything that said we did.
Yeah, it was one of those facts that had multiple options for the answer. So
Right.
which one did you
Well,
find?
they were, it was a common practice, taking one, obviously one last drink before leaving on a journey.
Yeah.
In a place like Old England, for example, they didn't have a lot of pubs, so they would, take one before going on a
Oh,
trip, one for the road. But there's also another one, the story, Condemned Man, which to
yes.
me makes just as much sense. A condemned man getting one drink before heading off to the hangman. Uh,
Yes. Yes, we did talk about that one. And I think if I remember from my research, the condemned man one
mhm.
was determined by a lot of people to be just like an urban legend type of thing
Yep.
because I mean, it could have been possible, I think, because, and I think we talked about this before too, where basically somebody's on their way to be hanged,
Mhm.
and they're brought to a pub first. First of all, that wouldn't have happened in most executions. They wouldn't.
Right.
But we thought it might be possible. There was always a lot of corruption in the olden days that somebody may have pulled a couple strings who was sympathetic and maybe didn't agree with
Right.
the sentence and maybe snuck the person into the pub or diverted, maybe the guy driving the wagon diverted for a minute out of sympathy or some sort of situation like that that may have happened once or twice.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that we expanded a little bit. We might have expanded into this
mhm.
from one that we talked about was last meals.
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
uh,
Exactly. Yes, because we were talking about how last meals aren't necessarily a nice thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, because they're not necessarily given out of sympathy like the last cigarette would be.
Right.
Uh
Right.
that's more of a humanitarian thing. It's like, you know what,
Hmm.
you're about to die. Why don't you have a last cigarette or whatever, or your
Right.
last words or things like that. No, it was mostly just to save face for the
Yeah. Yeah.
institution.
Yeah.
That's all very
One last
interesting.
char before they hang you. The
Exactly.
did we touch on before off the record?
No, I don't think we did.
Okay. So I mean, that's we all know what means off the record. When somebody says something off the record, that means that okay, we're not gonna. This is not going to be part of the investigation or the subject or whatever you want to call it.
Or the article
Uh,
or whatever. Yeah.
yeah, just basically not to be repeated to other people. Or if it is repeated, it doesn't get to be attributed to the original speaker.
Right.
And I think that it was originally coined by President Franklin Roosevelt in
Oh,
1932. At the time, the interviews were conducted and recording in very formal sessions. And by saying that he wanted to speak off the record, he meant that he wanted to talk to journalists and audience in a more laid back setting where he could crack a few jokes rather than focus on
right.
serious topics. The term became popular and particularly among journalists, and they started to classify it as on the record being meaning that people officially acknowledged their statements, and off the record mean that the identity of the informers, if you will, remained
Mhm.
confidential. It's interesting that was the start of it.
Well, and yeah, yeah. And it kind of tracks too, because wasn't FDR the fireside chat guy?
yes, and that's
Yeah.
exactly
Yeah.
that's really where it came from. You know,
Yeah.
he wanted to just sit and chat. And
Yeah, he knew what people were looking for was that homey, I'm one of you guys,
yeah,
kind of.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
FDR mostly good. Mostly good.
Mostly good. Yeah,
He did a couple of things that weren't great, but the good barometer for that was that his wife was angry at him about the things that he did that weren't good, like
yeah,
the internment camps and
yeah,
things like
yeah,
that.
yeah.
She didn't speak to him about that, I believe.
I'm sure.
She's like, I'm not talking to you anymore.
Yeah, yeah,
But of course, their marriage was their marriage was an on the papers kind of marriage, anyways.
right.
So,
Yeah.
and actually, they had the same last name. Eleanor Roosevelt was, I think this is true. I could look it up again, but I believe her maiden name was also Roosevelt. So,
Oh, okay. That's
yeah,
interesting.
it
I
happens
know that. Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, she
Oh,
was not, their marriage, it is rumored to have been, not a romantic marriage.
yeah. It was said that he had affairs and stuff.
In
Yeah,
affairs, and
yeah.
she had different tastes in people.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Which is, which is,
Yep. Okay.
totally cool. I
Yep.
actually like her a lot. She was very
Yep.
cool. She was the one, I think she was one of the first people to get, I think I read this fact. She was one of the first people to get one of those baby cages that they used to put on windows in the city.
Oh, Jesus.
Have you
I've
ever
read,
seen?
yes, yes. I've seen pictures of that.
You
Just like,
put like the baby cage on the window and the baby's like sitting there so they could get fresh air. Okay, number
yeah.
one in the city.
There ain't no dang fresh air there.
Yeah. And number two, you just gotta put your baby on what looks like an air conditioner, like that's hanging out the window. And that gives me the same feeling in my brain when I see those two things. Because if you look, like one of my neighbors has one, you look at an air conditioning unit sitting out a window and I don't care how stable it really is, it doesn't look it. It just
No,
looks like it could fall out at any moment.
it can. I remember we had one in one of the houses we lived in, and I put a bracket
Yeah.
outside on the outside of the windowsill to prop it up because when you first slide it in, they're very heavy,
Yeah. And
and for
they
the
could
most
tip.
part, it's right. For the most part, it's held down with the window. Okay,
Yeah.
so I put a shelf on it so that you would slide into it, and then that would give it its stability so it wouldn't tip over.
Oh yeah,
Uh,
that's a very good idea because I mean, especially in New England, where the
mhm.
windows, if you have old windows, I mean, they could just spring open. I know you put like, I usually put a screw
Yeah.
there too, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I never felt okay about the air
Yeah.
conditioning units. I never want to have those again.
No.
If
Yeah.
we ever end up in a place that doesn't have central, we want to get the split air system
Yeah.
that's also inside because, yeah, we don't want to deal with that. So I have a couple of cool ones.
Sure.
This one's pretty small. It's a quick one. Napoleon had a small portable library that he called a Kindle.
How about that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Interesting, right? Uh,
Interesting. Yeah.
you may wonder, since I did, if this is a clever origin for the name of the Amazon Kindle, but it isn't. It's just a
Yeah.
coincidence. Supposedly they named the Amazon Kindle like as a symbol of books kindling one's imagination or,
Okay.
kindling
Okay.
their interest, that kind of thing.
Mhm.
So this portable library, it kind of made me laugh too, because when you think of something that's portable, you think of something that's very small, right?
Yep.
And this portable library is technically smaller than a library, but it was 1,000 books that he used to take with him. And it would be like this, he had them in several boxes, these big boxes. And I saw a picture of one. It was basically made to look like a big book.
Mm.
You've seen those, those fake books you can have on your bookshelf and you open it up and it's really just a box that you could put things in.
Yep.
It was like that, but big. And you open it up and all these little books were inside and they would be lined with green velvet and they were made of mahogany. They would have 60 books inside. And I just thought it was interesting because the idea of something being portable, 1,000 books wouldn't be portable for you and me. Of course, I would totally take 1,000 books somewhere, but you and I aren't Napoleon. So Napoleon, when he traveled, probably traveled with like 25 carriages
Yep.
and
Yep.
like a
Yeah.
100 people working for
Yeah.
him.
Yeah.
He probably looked like an entourage everywhere he went, and he never had to carry anything. You know that.
Yeah. It's funny you describe it that way because when I was in high school, I was part of the advanced reading class, and we had a just that very thing, which looked like a book,
Yeah.
and it was huge,
Oh,
and
yeah.
it was on wheels. It would open up just like what you're talking about, like these storage cases that look like books. It would be just that same way. That was interesting. That just flashed in my memory when you brought that up.
Oh, well, in that case, let me send you a picture and tell me if it looks like familiar, if it looks like that, because I do have a picture of it. This picture I didn't crop, so you could see a couple of different photos in it. I just texted that to you.
Okay.
There's two different designs, but one of them looks like the book and the other one kind of looks like a little cabinet.
Yep. Wow. Yeah, that's similar. Yeah, it
Oh,
was
okay.
just like that one down the bottom there. That's exactly how
Oh, the
that
one on the
looked.
bottom? Yeah. Isn't that neat?
That's, yeah, that's cool.
Now, the one on
Oh,
the bottom is a Jacobian one, so it's probably not Napoleon's, but the one on the top is one of Napoleon's.
okay.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I would totally have one of those.
Okay.
But yeah, I just thought
Uh,
it was kind of funny when I was reading it and I was like, "Ooh, a Kindle. Oh, let me read more about this portable library. Sounds great." And then it was like he had 1,000 books. I'm like, "Okay. All right."
fat cat.
Yeah,
Anyway,
Napoleon was
okay.
very extra.
We may have already discussed this about rats, which is not necessarily my favorite thing to talk about. That we know they multiply very quickly,
They
but in a
do.
span of just a year and a half, two rats can have more than 1 million descendants.
Oh my.
Yeah, that's
They rival rabbits. My goodness.
they rival rabbits. And my story about rats is that when they tore down the prison in Charlestown, it was obviously infested with rats.
Yeah.
And for a short while, they would be roaming the streets. They'd be all over the place. It was
Oh
really
yeah.
on their way on their way to the bay or wherever they were going to go. And maybe on their way to the underground tunnels. I don't know where the
Yeah.
hell they went.
Well, isn't that the reason why you can't just take down your own buildings whenever you want to? When you
Yes, you
don't.
have to have specialists to evaluate the population and
Yeah.
how to get rid of them. They would be literally everywhere. And I think that my brother and I had the task of taking out the trash for the building. We lived in I think it was 4 apartments. And so our job was to take out the trash. And I can remember kicking the trash cans before we picked them up, you know, and
That's like checking your shoes when you go camping, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly. And I think at one point, we kicked the trash can, and then my brother bent over to pick up the trash can, and the rat just sprung right out of the trash can right over his head.
Oh my God.
And people give me crap about being afraid of them, but
Yeah, it's
these
trauma.
fears, I'm not so much afraid. A deep dislike for them that's rooted in childhood memories.
Well, yeah, and also like all you have to say is that you don't like jump scares because that's not
Yeah,
anything to be ashamed of. I hate jump
no.
scares. I actually like rats, not that I would like hang out with one that was like a wild one or anything.
Mhm.
I like domesticated rats. Rats
Yep.
themselves don't scare me, but I don't want one jumping at me either, you
No.
know. Like I would
Hell's
still
bells.
yell.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like I'm not too excited about that. At any rate,
That kind of
yeah.
reminds me of the Aunt Birdie story, right?
The Aunt Birdie story was kind of scary because she was opened the cabinet and a rat came out and was on her back and trying to get it off. Just kept crawling.
Was it a rat or a mouse?
No,
Because
it was big. It was a rat.
yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
yeah,
God. Well,
yeah.
I mean the the Comer family did have very big mice because they were very generous to the mice.
This was in the cottage up in
In the cottage, yes, but
yeah.
that whole family uh
Oh yeah, yeah.
that whole
They had
family were known for feeding wildlife and they still are.
yeah, yeah,
They're still, and I'm not gonna lie, I do feed wildlife also, but
yeah,
I don't live in the middle of the woods where I'm gonna get eaten by a bear.
yeah.
Shout out
Well,
to my
that's
mother.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. So
I'll feed the crows because I don't live in a cornfield and I don't have to worry about them eating my corn. Uh,
right.
and I was actually delighted when raccoons came onto my near my property because I don't have to worry about trash cans and things like that.
Yeah,
So, yeah,
yeah.
and
Well,
we have that nice little possum who all he wants to do is just eat the cat food that we leave out for the cats. So,
okay. All right. There you go.
I have a couple of ones in there. I think they're probably relatively quick.
Okay.
Um, I'm trying to debate which one to start with because I think they're both funny. Okay, I'll start with the slightly less funny one. So this one is about different names for groups of animals, right? You've heard about like a school of fish. You know what a school of fish is.
Right.
Or like I'm sure you've heard that a group of crows is called a murder.
Okay.
Okay. But they actually have names for like lots of them. And you've heard of a pride of lions, for
Right.
instance. You know what they're called. So the origin of these like nicknames, and there's obviously scientific names or more scientific names for groups of animals, like you could say a herd or whatever. But in the 14th and 15th century in Europe, there was a term for this. They were called terms of venery, and they were part of a specialized hunting vocabulary that was developed by the upper classes in England and France. And they were meant to be funny. They were meant to be cutesy. They were meant to be
Right.
like nicknames. And the most well known of these are in the Book of St. Albans, which was published in 1486. And some of the examples that I found, some are from the Book of St. Albans, but some are more modern. But I went through a list of like groups of different animals and I kind of just picked out the interesting ones. So, like I said, we know about a pride of lions. Most big
Right.
cats, if you're talking about a group of big cats, it's usually called a pride.
Mhm.
But small cats in a group are called a clouder.
Oh, wow. Huh.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there's other names for cat groups specifically for kittens. A group of kittens is called a Kindle. So
Oh,
again, with the
wow. There you
Kindle,
go. Kindle again. Okay.
right, right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And another name for a group of cats, which I'm sure you'll agree with, a nuisance.
Huh.
I like cats, but I'm
Yeah.
sure you'd think of them as a nuisance.
Yeah.
A group of butterflies can be called a kaleidoscope.
Wow. That's an interesting terminology. Yeah.
Yeah. And so some other ones, a group of cardinals is called a Vatican of cardinals,
Well, okay.
which is just funny because it's
That's
cardinals, you
funny.
know.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Uh, Also an obstinacy of cattle, which if you've ever dealt with cattle, that's very fitting.
Yep.
Of course, a murder of crows. A flamboyance of flamingos.
Okay, that's cool. That is cool. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Um, an embarrassment of giant pandas. Because I assume that comes from the fact that giant pandas just fall over all the time.
Yeah,
Just
could be. Yeah, you just wonder sometimes where these things come from. Yeah.
exactly. A cackle of hyenas, and we know where that would come
Okay.
from,
Yeah.
right?
Good.
Uh, a conspiracy of lemurs,
Hmm.
and I love this one, a parliament of owls,
Oh, okay. That
because
seems
they're so
appropriate.
wise and they're always
Yeah.
like sort of discussing with each other.
Yeah.
A prickle of porcupines,
Okay. Yeah.
a lamentation of swans, which is so dramatic.
Yep. Yep.
And the last one I picked was an unkindness of ravens, which
Oh,
is like, hey,
hey, yeah.
that's
Hmm.
not very nice, but I guess it's better than murder, you know?
Yeah,
Like
that's true. That's true.
I guess
Yeah.
if you're like comparing a raven and a crow, I guess you'd
Hmm.
rather be a raven. Just I'm unkind. I don't murder.
That's
Sorry.
right. There you go. Yeah, that's right. That would be the comparison I'd much rather too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that was my thing about animals.
Yeah.
And then my other last one is this one I friggin' love, and I've heard this one a lot of times, but I don't know if you've ever heard of it. So I think we should do a whole episode on these, actually. I love our trivia thing, but I think every once in a while we should do a special episode on a specific subject.
Mhm.
Um, there is a prize, like a specific prize. It's called the Bookseller Diagram Prize for oddest title of the year. And these are book titles. Have you
Okay.
ever heard about this?
No.
So every year, they started this in 1978 just as a bit of fun. It was for the Frankfurt Book Fair, and it was founded by a trade magazine for the publishing industry called The Bookseller.
Okay.
And it was so funny and entertaining that they decided to do it every year. And they've done it every year since, but they skipped a couple of years. They didn't have a prize a couple of years. So this is basically like the prize they give to either the most ridiculous or the most funny title of a book.
Mhm.
Doesn't really matter what the book's about. So, and in fact, the requirement is usually not to read the book at all
Oh,
if you're a judge. And I didn't do enough of a deep dive to see what the prize was. It may just be like, kind of like the hasty pudding thing where you just is the honor of having the prize, you know.
right, right.
But some of the winners from previous years, The Joy of Chickens by
Hmm.
Dennis Nolan.
Okay.
uh Oral Sadism and the Vegetarian Personality by Glenn C. Ellenbogen. This one I've actually seen. I actually want to buy some of these books. How to Shit in the Woods, an environmentally sound approach to a lost art by Kathleen Meyer.
Wow.
This one also very helpful. How to Avoid Huge Ships by John W. Trimmer. Um, there's also Bomb Proof Your Horse by Rick Pelicano and Lauren
Okay.
Shaden. People Who Don't Know They're Dead, how they attach themselves in unsuspecting bystanders and what to do about it by Gary Leon Hill. There's one that it's cute, but it's called Cooking with Pooh, and it's by a guy, Sayud DeWong. His nickname is Pooh, so that's why it's
Okay,
called
that's
that.
why it's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And the last one, which made me giggle, is Superman Circumcised by Roy Schwartz. And there was a little there was like in the chart there was a little sort of summary of what the book was about. That particular book was about Jewish themes in the comic book Superman.
Oh, okay, so that would be that's circumcised. Okay.
But it's a
Okay.
very good title.
That is a good title. Yeah.
There was one that was circulating around the internet. I saw it on Facebook. I think it's it was called it was called How to Make Ducks Pay. right? And they were like, "Oh, I thought this was like a revenge thing, but actually it's just like how to make money with ducks or whatever."
Oh, okay.
But it's like it could go either way. How to
It could
make
go.
them pay. What did those ducks do to you?
That's
Like,
right. Yeah.
yeah, it said, oh yeah, it says ducks and how to make them pay,
That's
which discusses raising ducks for profit. That was from 1894, but it's very, it was a funny, it, it was a funny, a joke on the internet. And actually I could buy it on Amazon if I want. Ducks and how
oh,
to
there you
make them
go.
pay.
Okay.
I seriously do want to buy some of those, but I want to know about how to shit in the woods. It might be a
There you
boring
go.
book. It's like dig a
Yeah.
hole.
Yeah.
I don't know why I do the things I do, but
Yeah. Sometimes, I mean, they had one that was, my brother gave me the no asshole rule, which was basically for work. So,
oh yeah. Well, I think I had one that said like it was like how to live or how to deal with like screwed up people. It was something like that,
yeah.
which sounds very similar. Oh yeah, but this list is so good. I mean, because it was from it's been going on since 1978. And
Mhm.
and I didn't put the first one on there. In 2024, the prize was given to The Philosopher Fish, Sturgeon, Caviar, and the Geography of Desire.
Oh, okay. Huh.
It's just so good. Goblin proofing one's chicken coop. If wow, this is bad. If you want closure in your relationship, start with your legs.
Wow.
Yeah. And you know what? I actually want to buy that book because I want to burn it. It's a self-help book written by a man for the benefit of women.
Yeah.
That is dark.
Yeah,
Start by
very
closing
dark.
your
Yeah.
legs. Go to hell. Takes two to
Oh,
tango,
that's for
asshole.
sure. Yeah. Wow.
Oh my goodness. Anyhow,
Okay.
we did another week, folks. I hope you enjoyed it. Shoot us an email if you like. We're at mochiverse@gmail.com. That's MOCCIAVERSE @gmail.com. And go over to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star rating and subscribe to us and let the world see how ridiculous we are.
Yep.
And I know something very ridiculous that my dad likes to do, and that's dad jokes.
Dead jokes. Yes. I was going to tell a joke about layoffs, but sadly, none of them work.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's the hardest tea to swallow?
What?
Reality.
Oh gosh,
You
that's a
know.
philosophical one.
Yeah. 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 Why did the employee at the calendar company get fired?
Why?
He took a day off.
Maybe he took too many days off.
That's right. Yeah. I, I was raised as an only child. It drove my sister nuts.
Oh, yeah, I actually can
I said
relate
that
to
one before. Yeah.
that. No, I just can relate to it.
Oh, okay. Listen, do you ever think about this? You don't need a parachute to go skydiving.
You just
Yeah,
need
yeah.
one.
But you actually do need one to go skydiving twice.
Yes, to go more than once.
Uh,
Yeah, the fall
it,
is nothing, it's the landing, right?
that's right. The
Yeah.
sudden stop. It's not easy being a mom. Otherwise, dads would do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hmm. Oh, my dog just ate $100 bill. This is kind of stupid. I guess he has expensive taste.
Oh my God.
Um,
Your dog used to do that.
I know I used to actually shadow ate a $5 bill one time. Um, I think I still have what's left of it. A guy who drove, a guy who stole my diary went missing. My thoughts are with his family.
That's good.
Yeah. What did the cow say to the leather chair? Hi, mom.
Aw.
Hard work pays off later. Laziness pays off now.
That's right.
Yeah. My resume is a list of things I hope I never have to do again.
That's actually very true.
It is very true. You why did the social media manager break up with her boyfriend?
Why?
lack of engagement.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's good though. It is good. It's very
Yeah,
important.
yeah. Okay.
All right. So I guess that's it for this time, folks. We'll see you in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Daddy wasn't finding a powwow. Daddy wasn't finding a powwow. I got a little cat. I'm very fond of that. I'd rather have a big powwow.
Yeah, do you want to start it off?
Sure.
Okay, go for it.
Good morning. No.
Oh shit. Hello, copyright police.
Yeah. Yeah.